Hey everyone, my name is Wes, and welcome back to another episode of Terror Talk where I discuss creepy clips online. I created this original horror music to add to the video, and I hope you enjoy it. Be sure to leave your own comments, and when you're done watching, check the description if you'd like to listen to my music without the commentary. Now let's get into it and have some fun.
I was 18 and had just moved into a new state to start college soon. I only had a few days before classes started, but I wanted to explore a little while I had the chance. The area around the campus was full of forests and hills.
Did you ever move to a new state for college? Let me know in the comments below. When I was in college, I actually went to UCLA to study film scoring. And that's actually why I'm able to make the music that I'm able to make for these types of videos, which is pretty cool. But yeah, let me know in the comments below if you've ever had to move to a new state for college or really anything else, because moving to a new state, especially if you don't know anyone, is pretty scary and intimidating, I'm not gonna lie.
With tons of outdoorsy stuff to do. So I found a trail that I thought looked nice and drove down one afternoon to walk it. Online it said it was only a 2-hour trip, so I didn't bring much, only a camelback for water. There were no other cars parked at the specific spot, which made me assume nobody else was on it. But not far in, I walked past another hiker. He was sitting on a fallen tree off the side of the trail and nodded his head at me as I passed by. It looked like he was on his way out because he was sweating and looked somewhat dirty, like he'd been outside for a while already. I kept walking for about 30 more minutes, just keeping to myself and listening to music, when out of nowhere, I heard a man's voice yelling. I turned around and saw that same person I'd passed, waving at me to get my attention. I stopped and waited as he jogged up to me.
Already I'd be like, what the hell? I mean, wouldn't you? Like, just leave me alone. I want to be out in nature and I don't want to be bothered. Just go away.
He said the trail name I was on in a questioning manner, and I responded, yeah, that's the one I'm following. He then pointed to my right. I looked out, and going into the trees was another trail. It looked pretty much identical, as neither trail was more than just some thin line of dirt. People tend to get lost in this section, going down the wrong way. I smiled and thanked him, but it definitely was a bit odd. He seemed nice enough though, and not meaning to be anything but helpful, and as I started walking down the trail he told me to, he continued along behind me.
I feel like this girl is being a little bit naive, don't you? Just accepting someone that's out in the middle of nowhere with her help like this without even giving it a questioning thought. Because, I don't know, maybe I've just gotten paranoid over the years, but if someone was being overly friendly like this to me, I would think they were up to something.
He explained that he's lived here for years and walks this path almost every day and hates to hear about new hikers getting lost out there. I guess it made sense to me at the time, and I kept up with the small talk, not really having any choice since he was right behind me. But after a few minutes...
And then he just starts following her right behind her and talking like she doesn't see this as weird at all. Like, this girl is way too trusting. She's being way too trusting.
The conversation fizzled out, and we just walked in silence for a while, still right by each other, but just not talking. The trail went straight for a long time, and it was after a good 45 minutes that I realized how far we'd walked. Knowing it was only supposed to be a 2-hour trail, I thought by now it would have started looping around. While I was just starting to think about this, I stumbled over something. It was a rusty railroad track, half buried in the dirt. I was surprised and looked back up, seeing not too far away from the trail an abandoned mine. It was this small hole going into the hill with 3 old wooden beams around the entrance and some railway tracks going into it.
How would you react in this situation if this guy practically led you to an old abandoned mine type thing? That would be pretty weird, wouldn't it? I would be like, what the hell?
Walked up and looked inside, but the light from outside didn't go very far at all. It was pitch black, with no way to know how far down it went. As I stood outside the entrance, the man came up behind me. I turned around and saw him standing just a couple feet from me, but his face was straight, and I don't know how to describe it, but he no longer had that harmless look. "Go in," he said in an eerily monotone voice that was nothing like how he was speaking before. It was demanding and terrifying.
Dang, that really would be terrifying, wouldn't it? He's now telling her to go in. I'm like, hell no, bitch.
I took off running without hesitation. He tried to reach out and stop me, but once I got a few feet away, I didn't hear him chasing me. As I entered the trees, I looked back, and the man was gone. He must have went right into the abandoned mine. I ran all the way back to the first part of the trail, then got back to my car and left the forest. That being my first real experience outside of my hometown was really unfortunate, but I think it taught...
Okay, my first real experience out of my hometown? Like, are you kidding me? You haven't had any other experiences out of your hometown? Like, how sheltered were you? I mean, like, is it just me? Or are you thinking the same thing? Let me know in the comments below, because something isn't adding up with that. But I don't know, maybe there are some really sheltered people out there. But, you know, your first experience out of your hometown, I mean, you must have gone on vacations at some point with your parents or your family. Because if that really was your first experience out of your hometown and you went nowhere else in your whole life, like, wow. That's just what I'm thinking.
Me a lot. I blindly trusted a random person I just met, and it could have been the last thing I ever did. If I went into that mine, I don't think I would have ever left.
Yeah, so I thought this was a good story, and I don't know, the person, I guess, seems a little off in certain ways with the whole being her first experience outside of the hometown. I think that's kind of weird, and just blindly trusting this guy. But that's why you need to be careful. If someone is overly friendly to you, then, and you're especially out in the middle of nowhere, I would definitely take that as a red flag and red signals to be really careful. But yeah, I enjoyed this story, and I hope you enjoyed my commentary, and I will see you in the next video.